You can forget about Titanic. The only place for big screen action, especially at Easter time like this, was at Thruxton in Hampshire for rounds 1 and 2 of the British Touring Car Championship. Well, now for rounds 3 and 4, we're here at Silverstone. And I'll tell you what, there's a pretty big crowd building here, set to break box office records for the latest BTCC blockbuster. Reigning champion Alain Menu and Volvo's Ricard Rydell took a win apiece in the last round, but the touring car organisers have put a couple of icebergs in the way in the form of mandatory pit stops and one-stop qualifying just to spice up the action. Menu got that sinking feeling after being forced to start the sprint race from the back of the grid for missing the chicane on his one-lap run. But an Oscar-winning performance still saw him charge through to fifth. Then in the longer pit stop race, Menu took on the role of leading man, and he beat off the sprint race winner, Ricard Rydell, for the win. In overall terms now, we've had 2 races with the new format. What do you think?
I think the new format works really well. I did at Thruxton. It's good for a driver to have something new to look forward to, and it's good for the teams to be involved in a pit stop race. And I think it does shuffle the grid a little bit, so it makes for more interesting races. So I think it's overall during the season it's going to work well.
And so now to Silverstone for the much anticipated sequel. But the question is, how familiar is the plot going to be? Ricard, after Thruxton, everyone's maybe thinking you're the guy to take out the championship?
I think Thruxton was very good for us, for sure. That last year, that was the only place we had a pole position, and we knew we would be quick there this year. I think that Silverstone here is going to be quite a lot harder for us, and we saw that in qualifying.
But the rest at Thruxton were Honda and James Thompson. Tomo picked up the award for Best Supporting Actor thanks to a couple of third-place finishes. But after being so dominant in winter testing, maybe we expected a bit more of Honda. Hey, but actually, Waddy, just reading your pre-season forecast here, mate, one of the teams that you didn't think was going to do so well at Thruxton, the good old boys, they actually put on quite a show.
Thanks, mate. But you're actually right, Charlie. And praise where praise is due. Vauxhall was a revelation in Thruxton.
But are you surprised, really, just how competitive you are at this early stage in the season?
No, I'm disappointed. You know, I think we can do a better job. Like I say, we're not happy with the car the way it is at the moment. We've got lots of new things to go on the car. And, you know, I think we're looking for an even better year, more competitive year than what we're having at the moment.
And I'm assuming you're talking for your teammate John Cleland in that comment as well.
I never talk for my teammate John Cleland. As we both know, he can talk for himself very well. I mean, John's a good driver. He's a good race driver. We have a good package, and I think we complement one another. And contrary to reports, we're not the good old boys. We're the good young guys.
It was pretty difficult getting a read on pre-race testing form and who was hot and who wasn't, largely because both days were carried out in bad weather. But no matter which way you look at it, there was a particular interest in one Ford driver, Nigel Mansell.
If you thought the 92 Formula One World Champion's involvement with Ford was little more than a publicity stunt, 2 days of pounding around a wet Silverstone in a 97 car said otherwise. At the end of it all, Mansell got within a second of teammate Will Hoy's best time, and his mood was upbeat.
Yeah, I think we're within a second, and you know, he's within a second or less than a second than the front runners. So, I mean, it is encouraging. We're not that far behind, but you know what it's like in racing. If you lose a week, you lose a day, you lose an hour, you don't get it back, and we just need some good, consistent running, and hopefully in the dry.
It might take a while for the Mansell effect to kick in, but in Silverstone qualifying, Ford didn't look to be in too bad a shape anyway, with Hoy's Mondeo getting into the top 10 for both races. The battle for pole in the one-shot showdown, though, was all about the Hondas, the Nissans and the Renaults. Actually, make that just the one Renault. Jason Plato took pole position for the pit stop race and then banged in a one-shot showdown lap quick enough for third place on the sprint race grid. But for teammate Alain Menu, it was déjà vu, with the Swiss going off into the gravel at Beckett's, making an uncharacteristic mistake. Now, this meant he was forced to start at the back of the grid for the second sprint race in a row. Star of the show was James Thompson, who turned on the style with a one-shot lap over 2/10 quicker than Nissan's David Leslie. No mere supporting role for the Honda driver here.
I find like running through the lap in the head's usually quite good, but I'm not saying it makes it any better. But yeah, you really do have to be focused, and you've got to get a compromise between not costing yourself time by pushing too hard, but also not pushing not enough that you don't do a good enough time. So yeah, it's really good.
As the Autotrader RAC Touring Car Championship moves to Silverstone, the home of the British Grand Prix, who better to show us around the track than a guy that's actually won the race?
And the British Grand Prix has been won by a British car with a British driver. His name, John Watson. When the lights go green, 22 touring cars are going to make a charge on Copse Corner. Some won't make it through Silverstone's traditional accident black spot. A high-speed corner with another blind apex, but a very wide and open exit. It requires a great deal of precision and commitment to make a pass down the inside. Upon exiting Bridge Corner, you've got to get right over to the right-hand side of the track to take priority. It's a blind apex, you've got to anticipate the corner. The big problem is, of course, by doing so, you open up the inside of the corner to somebody to come along and pass you, so you lose track position and position overall.
Okay, John, that's the older part of the circuit, but this is Abbey, the new part of the circuit, and it's what I think of more as a real touring car corner, the sort of corner where cars steam into it very quickly, have to wash off tons of speed and then take off again. In this case, the cars move towards us at more than 140 miles an hour. They have to stand on the anchors and drop 100 miles an hour, down to about 40, 45, to get round this really tight hairpin. Then the corner narrows down and there's only one natural exit. So often cars come in two abreast, they get squeezed, and only one guy is the winner when we get up there to the blue and white rumble strip. There are two wild cards for this race. The first one is the weather. Now, although it's sunny now, it was raining very hard earlier and the track is still incredibly wet. Look how wet it is here, and look behind me, the Honda guys are actually trying to drive the track in front of where James Thompson's going to start from. So that's going to be a real trick, especially as we go into Copse, the first corner, where John Watson's already told us it's a blind corner. Slick tyres, wet, that's really difficult. Oh, the second wild card? Well, that's Alain Menu. He's starting way up the back of the field again, as he did in the first sprint race in the last round. And that's because he made a mess of his one-stop qualifier.
Well, I'm sure the 97 champion, Mr. Cool Alain Menu, will provide us with entertainment this afternoon. In the meantime, pole position by James Thompson from David Leslie in the Nissan. A very bruised and sore Jason Plato after a testing shunt, joined by Gianni Morbidelli. Derek Warwick and Richard Riedel are 5th and 6th, and Peter Cox and Ivan Muller in an improving Audi, 7th and 8th. Will Hoy's 9th and John Cleland in 10th place. Row 6 is all independents with Neil and Rudstedt. 13th is independent Rob Gravitt, alongside a struggling John Bincliffe in his Audi. 15th Tim Harvey, and 16th Craig Baird. 17th Roger Moon, and 3 who tripped up in qualifying, Menu, Reed and Radicic.
Engine revs rising. James Thompson on the right of our screen, flames out of back of Rydell's Volvo as they're away for round 3, and a rocketing start from Will Hoy in the Ford, an ordinary start from James Thompson. Look at David Leslie in the white Nissan, straight ahead. Leslie's got the drop, Thompson in behind him, and Plato slots in behind him as they funnel into the corner for the first time. A good start there as well for Derek Warwick, and now we're on board with Gianni Morbidelli in behind Will Hoy. What a lightning start that was for Hoy as we head up and over the top of the hill and down towards the right-hander onto the complex for the first time.
And remember, the circuit is still wet in places, ready to catch anybody who gets offline at all.
And that's Peter Cox talking of offline. He's off into the first corner. That's Copse at the end of the straight. There's obviously been contact as they've all funneled around. As you said, John, a real black spot.
Indeed, Copse always catches somebody out. We saw one of the safety vehicles on circuit, and I just wonder whether we're going to see the safety car itself come out for the first time in '98.
Back with the leaders now, and there's Hoy, and looking on the inside of Derek Warwick as we go down through Abbey. That's the battle for 5th place, and he's really looking over. Now Gianni Morbidelli comes up behind him. This is allowing him to make a bit of space as we go up and under bridge. Terribly fast part of the circuit, and it's wet there.
Yes, there's a huge puddle under bridge, but look what happens into Priory.
Hoy's pressing him. That's Hoy in the Ford, squirming, trying to get past Warwick, nudges Warwick in the process. There's Morbidelli in the first of the Volvos, and Rydell comes along to play as well.
And Morbidelli had to get out of the throttle, and that's allowed his teammate to come alongside and get past. But John Cleland, look at him, bang, 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 into the back of Rydell's car.
He's trying to climb into the boot of Rydell's car for a lift down the back straight. What a bunch of cars we got. That's Cleland just moving to the left to see if he can find a way past. Safety car's out.
Yes, to get the car, Peter Cox's Honda, out of Copse Corner is very, very important.
And poor old David Leslie, he's got it all to do again. A flying start from him. It's probably pretty good news for James Thompson, who gets a second crack at having a start. There's Jason Plato in the first of the Renaults in third place, and Warwick right behind him. Now here's a replay. We always said it was a black spot. You told us that before. What's going on? We're on board here with Peter Cox.
Coming down into Copse Corner, Peter Cox staying towards the left-hand side of the circuit, cuts across to take the apex, and all of a sudden he's got a Honda going backwards into the gravel.
Obviously some impact. Now here's a view back from Rickard Rydell's Volvo. We've got Ivan Muller, that's onto the left of our screen. Through the middle of them comes the opportunistic John Cleland, and over to the right-hand side of the screen, just out of shot, is our friend Peter Cox. Now here we turn into Cox. Cox turns in. There's contact between him and Muller. How do you call it?
Really, I think it was a motor racing accident. Peter Cox and Muller looking for the same part of track. Only one car could get through. Cox was the one that suffered. Muller went on.
And here's our restart. The safety car's back in, and away they go, and a blinder of a start again from Leslie. It's green flag. Green flag, that means go, and away they go. And it's Leslie in the Nissan. Right behind him this time, James Thompson in the Honda. Right behind him is Jason Plato in the first of the Renaults, and then hot on Jason Plato's tail is Derek Warwick in the first of the Vectras. On board with him now. We're through Copse Corner, up over to the top of the hill, and on the run for the first time since the restart down into Beckett's. Now the track looks so, it is drying, it is. You can definitely see it's drying, but of course they're on cold tyres again. Got a problem, or he started off the back of the grid, remember?
Yes, started in 18th place, and a big disappointment for the 97 touring car champion to be in the pits and effectively out of this race so early.
I don't know whether it was contact or whether he's got, well, I don't know whether it was contact. That's Matt Neal off into the gravel as well. If it was contact between those two, that's at Brooklands in the complex part of the circuit. And they're looking for damage on Menu's car. I can't see anything.
It's very hard to tell, but certainly working around the front of the car, and I have to say, at the pace they're working, that car doesn't look like it's going to be out in this race.
What an absolute disaster for the champion. As we rejoin now, that's Derek Warwick in the Vauxhall. He's in fourth place, and that's a real brawl that he's got going with Will Hoy behind him. Hoy's got the magnets on now, and he's trying to pull that Vauxhall back his way into the complex. It's a hard place to find anywhere to pass here, whether he can line him up. In the meantime, he's also going to worry about Morbidelli and Rickard Rydell in the two of the Volvos. Here's Morbidelli again, more than looking down the inside, leaning on Hoy. Morbidelli making new friends in the Touring Car Championship and deciding to give Hoy a bit of a wet and dry rub down.
And Ford really shining in these very difficult conditions. Will Hoy driving superbly, but Daniel Morbidelli squeezes the Volvo past and they come up into Copse. But be careful.
Will Hoy fainting a bit of a look down the inside. That won't help his exit speed, but it's not going to find him a way past there. And now Hoy's coming under pressure himself. He's got a Vauxhall one side and a Volvo the other.
Yes, Rickard Rydell got the run off the corner. A strange line for Will Hoy to take going to the Copse, but he's lost another position and now under attack from John Cleland in the second of the Vauxhalls as they fight their way out of Beckett's.
There you can see Cleland's actually trying to line him up, isn't he? Cleland took a wider line. Hoy's had to defend in through a great view of the island chicane looking backwards. Now Hoy's looking, I don't know if he can actually find his way down there. This is the big run downhill towards Abbey. When we get to the bottom here, they'll be doing more than 140 miles an hour. They've got to drop the bulk of the speed, as they do here, and he just can't find a way around.
Well, Rickard Rydell able to maintain his position. Will Hoy did look, but watch out for John Cleland, the Vauxhall. That's the third of the three cars we have on screen under bridge. So it's Rydell, Hoy, Cleland breaking up into Priory Corner.
Yeah, what a scrap this is for sixth place. And look at the Volvo now. That's Rydell's Volvo in the front of your screen, running wide, big understeer. The circuit's still damp. Hoy's trying to find another way around.
And Anthony Reid now has made his way up to this battle for sixth place. Reid started in 19th. He had a water leak, but it came to the one-lap qualifying. What a great drive from the man from Oxford.
Brilliant pictures now as we look back from Rickard Rydell's Volvo. Back with our leader now, David Leslie in the Nissan. And look at the lead he's already picked up over James Thompson in the Honda, then Plato in the Renault. And there's the first of our Vauxhalls. That's Derek Warwick in fourth position. He's hotly followed by our two Volvos, Morbidelli and Rydell, back to back. Will Hoy in the Ford ninth, and then John Cleland rounding out the top 10.
What happened? I overtook Neil going on the inside for Priory, and we went side by side around the corner, but as think maybe I started to slide first. So we hit each other and we were sideways, and then he just came back on me. So
I left a good car and a half width on the inside. Two-thirds of the way through the corner, I just get a massive thump in the back of the car, knocked me sideways, dropped the rear wheels into the gravel off the edge of the circuit. But I managed to keep it going as I was coming back on the circuit. He just came across and used all the circuit and hit me.
Well, clearly Neil got tapped on the left rear corner, but of course the old pendulum effect took over, and that's why Alan Menu was complaining. He drove back into me. That Neil didn't really have any option whatsoever.
It was a great impact though, wasn't it? He hit him like a pile driver straight in the side of the car, and the uprights in these cars, they quite easily break.
But here's one Nissan getting it right as David Leslie leads now by over 5 seconds as he comes down into Abbey.
Like poor old Will Hoy, who's not getting any breathing space at all. And there's Leslie's teammate, Reed. He's absolutely stormed through the field. This is the drive of the race.
Both Nissans are really benefiting from a lot of engine work since Thruxton, and clearly at Silverstone it is showing.
Meanwhile, John Cleland decides he's going to work out another way around Will Hoy. Once again, you can see the track is still down. Will Hoy's run wide. I was just going to say the track is damp down at Abbey, and boy is it damp. Hoy's overshot himself. Cleland's got in on the inside. Now Reed says, I'll have a bit of this as well. He's moving up the inside. 3 into 1 won't go as they go under bridge. Cleland's got it. Hoy says, I'm not dropping any more spots. So he moves in, shuts the door, and Reed's in behind him. Poor old Will Hoy is actually sauntering to the midfield pretty quickly from a good opening. On board now with Gianni Morbidelli as we move into the pass me. Well, he's got to be talking to teammate Rickard Rydell. It can't be anybody else. Certainly wouldn't be Will Hoy after the shenanigans of the last couple of laps. What's going on? It's too early for team orders, John.
There's no way that's team orders. Gianni Morbidelli clearly has got a little problem, and it could develop into a bigger one. He said to teammate, look, go through, you go for the position, go for the points. Remember, you're leading the championship at this stage as well.
Well, there's the message to Rickard Rydell. Lap 7, and he knows what position he is because he's just picked up one from his teammate. Now Morbidelli will be fending off, protecting the rear of Rydell, and Craig Baird in the forwards in. Big disappointment for Craig in the forward team. I don't know what his problem is there because the car's rolling all right.
Well, one Mondeo in the pits, the other battling for position. That's Will Hoy and Anthony Reid out at Beckett's, and bits of bodywork being exchanged as well.
Anthony Reid really lost out in that exchange. Hoy got the inside line, and Reid's lost a big gap already.
The momentum Reid has built up is now being halted by Will Hoy. We're getting close to the end as Craig Baird finally has to say, my day for this race is over.
Yeah, this isn't going to do his confidence any good. He desperately needs a finish. He desperately needs to get a race under his belt. Another Kiwi doing pretty well there is Paul Radicic, and he's coming under attack from Tommy Rustad, another of the independents. As Radicic in the green Peugeot. Now we're on board with Radicic, and we know full well that we've got Tommy Rustad in our mirrors somewhere as we head over the top of the hill and down into bridge. Now he's got to defend, he's got to cover that. Rustad's all over the back of me. He's really ruffling some Works feathers, Rustad. He's right up in the thick of the action.
We've got 2 independents with a Works Peugeot in the middle. Of course, Paul Radicic also started so far back down the grid, but to be embroiled in a battle with independents when you're in a factory Peugeot isn't exactly the flavour of the day.
I just turned into the hairpin out the back, and Rob Gravitt just came screaming through and used me for brakes. So
what's the first assessment of the damage?
I think it's just bent the rear suspension. I'm too sure it just didn't feel right, so I brought it in.
I know exactly how he feels. Rob did the same thing to me a couple of years ago at exactly the same place on the circuit. Back now with our race leaders, and there you have James Thompson in second and Jason Plato in third. And what a race-long battle this is for second position. And it's closing. Plato's all over the back of him.
Now these two guys are pretty much friends off the racetrack, but on the circuit, well, it's no give, no take. But Jason Plato clearly can run faster than James Thompson at the moment, but the Renault doesn't quite have the legs of the Honda to make it past. Here, coming onto the fastest part of the circuit down into Abbey, he's right up the boot lid, I was going to say gearbox, of the Honda. But watch the Honda, it's just got that little bit more horsepower, can pull away from Plato in the Renault.
It's also that little bit wider as well. He's not going to get past, but Plato's definitely keen to make it the friendship even closer, and overcooks it completely, runs wide, loses momentum. Look at that, Thompson gets the pull straight out of the hill again. Jason just too keen under brakes, but he's coming back at him again already. I don't know what it is, but that Renault is really flying.
Flying he may be, but James Thompson seems to be able to have an advantage on some parts of the Silverstone circuit. Elsewhere, Jason Plato in the Renault, he's also very quick. but it's consolidation. James Thompson wants to keep that second place in this race. He's not going to give it up to Jason Plato.
And while the kids are at play, the Nissan's away. Bear in mind, while these two entertain us with their battle for second position, David Leslie's off into the distance somewhere. Jason lost a little bit of time there coming out of the complex. He looked one side of James Thompson's Honda, and that really seemed to slow him up. And there's the gap. Look, it's a straight length between Leslie and the rest of them. 5 seconds ahead of Plato and Thompson, then Warwick, Rydell and Cleland rounding out the top 6. Will Hoy, who ran so strongly early, is now more than 21 seconds adrift of the leaders. They're on the last lap now, and there's no way David Leslie, short of an accident or short of some big mistake, is going to lose the place. But second place is really up for grabs, and it's really open. Jason Plato trying to force the point. James Thompson knows full well this is a difficult part of the circuit to follow, but once we're through this chicane, we've got the big run down to Abbey again.
Yes, and he just made his car very, very wide. He's not done anything wrong. This is the art and craft of being a racing driver, putting your car on the piece of racetrack that you know your opponent wants to take away from you.
And he just cannot get close enough. Plato running a little bit wider there deliberately to get a better slingshot out of the bottom of Abbey, because it's a big pull up the hill here now towards the bridge, and it seems to have worked. He seems to be closer.
The only place I think he can try to overtake Thompson is out of bridge and then dive up the inside into Prairie, but he's too far behind.
Is there anything else left now? As we run around the complex, it's really just ducks and drakes, isn't it? You follow your way around. The last shot maybe for Jason Plato is the big drag onto the straight.
Well, the power of that Honda, we know it's the most powerful engine currently in touring cars. Renault's not bad, but the gap is too great. There's over half a second between these cars, battling for second place.
And look at David Leslie. David Leslie crosses the line and takes the win. It's the first win for Leslie and Nissan and the new Ray Malek team, and so well deserved. And meantime, James Thompson just hangs on for second, holding out Jason Plato. And there's the confirmation. What a win for David Leslie. Made it look easy. Ahead by more than 6 seconds from James Thompson and Jason Plato. What a great scrap they had for second. Derek Warwick a regular now with the Vauxhall in the top 5, and Rickard Rydell rounding it out. 6 to 10. Well, it was John Cleland in the second of the Vauxhalls. They're both up there now. Reed, a storming drive for him in the Nissan into 7th place. Morbidelli, Hoy and Ivan Muller rounds out the 10.
Everything worked spot on. The guys have worked a long time getting this thing right, and it was really good. Everything was just perfect. Engine, brake, chassis, you name it, it worked well, I worked well. And we just went away from them. I couldn't believe it, I was walking away from them. These people are hard people to beat. They're very, very good. And for us to win with a Nissan is it's really good. It's only our second year back in the competition. Yeah, what more can we ask for? It's fantastic.
I was going to say, it's been a while coming. You've just seen it come closer and closer, and you've kept saying podium, podium, then we'll win.
Well, I got the first podium for Nissan, and now I've got the first win for Nissan. But it won't be the last. Between the two of us and the team, Anthony and myself, we'll have a lot more wins. Don't worry about it.
Champagne spraying and celebration time for David Leslie and for Nissan. Their first win with the Ray Malek team. No time for celebration and jubilation inside the Nissan camp, with the team now working flat out to prepare David Leslie's car, and indeed Anthony Reid's car, in time for race number 2. Right behind David Leslie, and a brilliant race it was. To see him lead so easily and win the race was an astonishing start set between James Thompson and Jason Plato for second place. Well, that was as close as you want. Did he give you room?
Yeah. I mean, it was a good race. I mean, I've done a few close battles with James, in particular the one at Thruxton. You know, he's a good driver, and he drives a wide car.
Yeah, fairly wide.
Yeah, but you've had good battles every once in a while. They've been closer than just close.
Well, we're young, competitive, and like for us, touring cars is what I said. For me, it was a dream. I watched it on telly when I was young. Getting here, I certainly don't want to. I want to succeed when I'm here, and I don't like to give way, and you don't. So it's fair enough. Last year we had coming together at Brands Hatch. The championship was getting pretty close between all of us, and our tempers frayed. But we went for a beer afterwards, so it was not a problem.
So where were you stronger, and where was Jason stronger?
Well, it was a bit of a balance thing. My car was good in the early laps when it was damp. I pulled away from Jace a little bit. And then in the end, I was very slow through the high-speed corners. The car was oversteering a lot, and so I had to be very neat and tidy. I didn't want to throw it up into the gravel. And Jace caught me up at the high speed, and my car was still reasonable at slow speed, whereas Jason's wasn't quite as good.
Is that how you saw it? Did you think it was the tight stuff that was the big difference between the two?
Yeah, I mean, James's car just all of a sudden went off at, I don't know, with about 5 laps to go, and virtually straight away I know I'd chosen the wrong tyres. I went for hard slicks instead of some soft ones, so I was struggling early on, but I knew that the car would come back, or in fact their car would deteriorate, but it was very difficult. I mean, I had a couple of looks twice. There was once there was a move was on, but the penultimate lap was just not worth throwing away.